Hello and welcome to the Dispatch podcast here on Your Experience Guide. Before we get into our conversations today, let's meet the hosts.
Hello, I'm Steve. I've got a coaster count of just under 250 roller coasters. And for over 10 years, I was working with the engineering team at Alton Towers and the operations team at Alton Towers.
I'm Mike. I have a coaster count of 286, and of them, my most ridden manufacturer is Vekoma with 38.
Hi, I'm Scott. My roller coaster count is 528, and I was actually scared of roller coasters until I was 10 years old. But now it's time to talk about why is nobody in the UK building any thrill coasters anymore?
Scott, how come the UK just don't seem to be catering to UK thrill seekers at the moment?
Well, I think it's because we simply don't make enough money. I think it boils down to the fact that families are going to make more money than, say, us three. I don't know if they've gone too far with it, but they've maybe gone fully down the family route now, whereas thrill seekers really are not the priority, and it's more a let's get the families in and get the money that way. But in my opinion, I feel like it's gone too far. I don't know what you guys think about that, but for me, I just think like, where are the thrill coasters? We need thrill coasters. For now, it feels like we've got to a point where we're building rides that get to a certain age, and then it's like, well, what do you do next? Or you have to go abroad to go on a thrill coaster. That's how I see it anyway.
And the way I kind of take it, our recent visit to Orlando kind of proved that with the difference in queue times when you look at Hagrid's, which has way more capacity than Velocicoaster, and Velocicoaster doesn't quite get the same amount of queues. Now, I'm not saying I prefer Hagrid's. I by far prefer Velocicoaster, but it's
you're right there.
It's a very
I just checking you're all right there. Yeah, carry on, Steve.
It's a very clear representation of how the family audience is much greater than the thrill-seeking audience, and that's just one of my favourite parks there. So,
yeah, I'd agree with what Scott said about like everything seems to be sort of you build up to maybe sort of early teens, and then seems to stop like your Nemesis, your Colossus, Stealth, all that. It's been a while since a coaster like that really has been built before Hyperia.
Since 2010, according to my reckoning anyway, there's been about 8 thrill coasters in the UK now. I know when we discussed this on Facebook, we had a bit of back and forth about actually some of these are not thrill coasters. So off the top of my head, I'm going to try and remember these. This is definitely the first take and not the third take that we're doing this. So since 2010, we've had 13, Hero at Flamingo Land, we've had Swarm at Fort Park, we've had the Smiler, we've had Wickerman, Icon, Sick, Hyperia. Now, I know that you disagreed with me on 13.
Yeah, I do think that 13 is very much a family coaster with a dog theme.
Yeah.
13 is borderline.
But also so is Wickerman, because I think if you take the theme away,
it's a family coaster.
It's a family coaster,
it's
and
small coaster, really.
It's got a family height restriction.
Yeah.
So, do you see it ever changing where we're going to go back to where we have a period of time where we're getting things like the big one, like Nemesis, like Oblivion, like Galactica, where you're getting all these big roller coasters that are opening in a short space of time? Or do you think now that we are in a position where we are just going to get family coasters with the occasional Hyperia?
I realistically don't see a park going down the route of redoing a coaster again.
No, I don't.
Nemesis hasn't really done well for the outlay.
I mean, we've not seen the official figures, but when it opened, me and Stephen can vouch for this. 6-hour queues. When Hyperia opened, 6-hour queues. Now, is this because these rides are popular, or is it because their capacity and throughputs can't handle the enthusiast demand when they first open? Now, of course, Nemesis has had some well-documented issues. It's been on one train quite often, and when it has been on one train, it's had massive queues. But when it's been on 2 trains, as we saw in August, it was walk-on. So, can you see parks, Stephen, going down the retracking route? Because we know that Colossus isn't getting done anymore. We know Big One's not getting done anymore. So are parks now going to go, well, actually, it's not working. Do we just need to replace these old rides? But the issue with that is, are we going to see more family rides as a result?
Well, it's a tricky one, really, because as you mentioned, they've had 6-hour queues for these new thrill coasters. So in my eyes, that shows that there is a a market there.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting a 6-hour queue for a thrill coaster, then clearly the people are hungry for a thrill coaster. So there's definitely a demand there. And just going back to your earlier question about family coasters kind of replacing thrill coasters, I think that has been a thing that has been happening increasingly. Like good instances are 13 and Wicker Man, where they are essentially family coasters. I know people probably will disagree there, but at the end of the day, that hardware could be used as a family coaster quite easily in both instances. Now, when it comes to retracking, that's a little bit of a trickier question, because it depends on the ride, because some rides will last longer than others. So, and also, if you do have a roller coaster, and like Nemesis Reborn, I think they did a fantastic job with it. Considering you're just replacing like for like, I think they did a really good job at getting that excitement there for essentially an old coaster that's just been redone. As more and more of these coasters come to the end of the life, so we've got to think like in 4 years' time or 3 years' time, Oblivion is probably going to be in the same kind of situation where are they going to retrack it or are they going to put something else in? And I know we did a vlog in the summer, and I suggested maybe we should take Oblivion out and put something more interesting in there, or even a next level dive coaster, because Oblivion was a prototype. They didn't know if it was going to fully work when they built it. So it was let's just spend a load of money on building a big tunnel and half the budget on a ride and see if it works. And it did. And obviously the ones after that have been increasingly bigger and better as time's gone on. So I do think there is a market for thrill seekers.
I definitely think there's a market there. My worry is that it's kind of being overlooked at the minute in favour, because obviously the family market is always going to draw in more money, because you're going to get a bigger group probably. I mean, in my case, I live with a family of 3. There's me, my son and Becca. So we are a group of 3, whereas if we go, we're the same number. But as a family, you're more likely to spend more money because you're going to spend more on your child. I've seen this myself, where if just me and Charlie go to Blackpool, I probably spend more that day than I do with 5 visits with you two, because he wants fed all the time, he wants on-ride photos, he wants merch, and then he wants feeding again because he never stops growing. So it's like you are always going to spend more money as a family. But my concern with it is, like, my son's 6, he's starting to go on bigger coasters. When he gets to like the age I did when I was like, I'll go on anything, at what point does he do everything and then go, well, I'm done now, where's the new stuff for me? Because then he'll be in a position when he's, say, 14, looking back and going, right, I've done all the big stuff, but they're putting in coasters that I wouldn't have done when I was 5 or 6, because I was too scared of them then. But now as a 14-year-old, they're too little. So I feel like, yes, I get it. I get building the family rides. I really do get it. I think they have to do it. But please don't forget about thrill seekers, because if you want these young thrill seekers that are going on things like Storm Chaser at Poulton's Park, which is a great coaster, by the way, for families, what are they going to do next after it? And that's why I think when Poulton's Park announce whatever they're doing for 2026, I think it'll surprise people. I really do.
I think as well, when you talk about the family market, but a family will have a thrill seeker in it.
Yeah.
So if we take both of us, I'm 6 years older than my brother. You're
I
what?
thought you were going to say 6 years older than me. I was going to say what happened.
You're 7 or 8 years older than your brother, right?
8 years older, yeah.
So we've both got a situation there where we go to the park as a family. Me, mum, dad, brother.
Yeah.
And my brother's 7, 8.
Yeah.
I'm 14.
Yeah.
I'm going on like Nemesis and Oblivion and Air and all this lot, because that's what was big at the time. My brother's going on Squirrel, Nutty and Beastie and whatever. But then if you take that top tier of coaster away, you've got a bored 14-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely bored 14-year-old. Because I think at that age, I would have been bored with a coaster like 13 or Wicker Man in comparison to Nemesis or Oblivion.
Yeah, and no, I agree with that, because I think, again, when you look at it from another point of view, is like from when I used to go to the Pleasure Beach with my mum and dad before my brother was born, my dad was very much keen on, like, the age between me and Charlie is similar to the age between me and my dad. So when I was like 6 at Pleasure Beach, my dad was going on things like the Big One, the Wild Mouse, Big Dipper, but he couldn't go on them with me because I didn't want to do them. My mum didn't want to do them, but she couldn't do them because she had to look after me. So it was like, well, he's going to go on them on his own, or he's going to go on with my cousin or my auntie or my uncle who were used to meet us because they live in Blackpool. So it was like they were the thrill seekers, and then we'd go on Pleasure Beach Express, we'd go on Beaver Creek Log Flume, we'd go on the Beaver Creek helicopters, and there was something for everyone to do. And I think that when we were at Universal Orlando Islands of Adventure the other month, we alluded to this. I don't know if we did it on camera or not, Stephen, but we said this is the ultimate family park because there is literally something for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. We did mention it. It was something that really became clear to me that even though Velocicoaster is there and it's not as popular as Hagrid's, it's still popular.
Yes.
Like, it still gets big queues. And it fills that gap of the thrill seekers because any good family park should cater for everybody. I think the one that hurts the most at the moment in recent times is probably, in my opinion, Drayton Manor, with the removal of some of their bigger thrill rides recently. It doesn't appeal to me anymore, and
no.
I'll be honest. When it pings up saying "Let's go Drayton," I'm like, "Oh, really?"
Well, I think
there's nothing for me.
I think this goes back to Mike's point of you could have a bored 14-year-old because, for example, let's say Mike's family from when he was a child, or you're like a mid-aged teen, going with his parents, and his brothers wanting to go. Yeah, he could go on Gold Rush, but where's the Apocalypse for you?
Yeah.
And then you've turned the Wave into whatever the hell that is now. It was a bad coaster anyway, and it's terrible now. But it's like, I actually like going to Drayton Manor because I feel like there's a nice vibe at the park. But then you get there and it's like, what is it for me? I'm a thrill seeker. And it's kind of like I could go there with my son. Perfect. There's loads for him to do. But it's like, if I go with you two, it's like, well, like we did. It's like, well, 2 o'clock, you're going, right, okay, we've done the few rides that might be aimed at us. What now? And that is the thing that worries me about so many parks now in this country that are potentially looking at going down this route. And it's like, please remember, thrill seekers will come to your parks if there is something for us to do.
Yeah, again, you're not going to go to, if you've got the choice there between Alton Towers and Drayton Manor, and you're in that position, if you take my family, put us in now, at that age, you go, well, Drayton Manor's got nothing for the older teenager, so
exactly.
We're going Alton Towers because it's still got the big coasters. There's another point here as well is, and Towers is particularly bad for this. We talked about it the other week. The flat rides. A lot of the flat rides made a really good family man.
Yeah, they did. I'm just smiling because I'm not a massive fan of flat rides. So it's like when people put online like they need more flat rides, I'm kind of like, I don't really care. I mean, I give me more dark rides, give me more coasters, give me more water rides. But see, for example, Towers have never replaced the Flume in my eyes. And that's annoying because that is a family ride, but that's something that everyone could do. Yeah. And I think that one thing that does bug me when we have the family ride conversation is it feels like the family ride thing is now basically it's a hidden term for a kid's ride. Whereas a family ride is something that a whole family can do. Whereas sometimes a new ride that's perhaps a kid's ride is dressed up as a family ride, and it's really not. It's basically for, like, my son who's 6. It's like, it's a tough one, but I don't see it changing. I really don't. Unless we don't know what Poulton's Park are doing officially. There's a lot of rumours about what they might be doing with their coaster in 2026. But if they bring a coaster with inversions and all of a sudden they've got a 1.2 metre height restriction roller coaster, they are catering for the whole family then. Because, like I say, my son's 6. He's 127 centimetres tall. He can almost go on the big one at Pleasure Beach. Would he go on it at 6 or 7? No chance. I've stood him next to the height board the other day, and he doesn't know how to tell me to F off yet, but his face might as well have told me to F off. So it's like, there is a market there for it, and I feel like we need one park who could just come in and shake it up, and I feel like Poulton's Park might be that park. You're looking at me all funny. What's up?
I really hope Universal come.
Yeah, but that's like 4 years away.
I know. But like, I think that will because at the end of the day, the UK market, it's tough for the independents.
Yeah,
so like your Blackpool Pleasure Beaches, your Flamingo Lands, your Poulton's Parks.
Yeah.
It's hard for them because you've got I wouldn't say a monopoly, but Merlin have quite a good grasp, and no matter who is out there, it's good value.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
If you get a Merlin pass, it's such good value that no other single park can compete against that, really.
No.
So I do think that having a larger park come in will shake up the smaller parks to kind of up their game a little bit. I do worry about some of the smaller parks. I think it is going to be a struggle when it comes, but you've got to bear in mind it's a different price bracket.
Yeah.
You only go to Universal maybe once, don't you? Yeah, whereas like, well, we won't.
Sure?
I know we won't, but most people would probably only go once because of how expensive it is. We'd probably get season passes because we're going to go. We're enthusiasts, so we're going to go more often.
Yeah. Talking to two people who've bought Six Flags season passes, for, we don't live anywhere near a Six Flags park, but it's like next year we're visiting 5 or 6 Six Flags parks over a period of time, and it's just like buy the season pass. But honestly, I think obviously a lot of people overlook Poulton's Park at the minute because it is basically a kids' park with Storm Chaser, which is probably the closest thing to a thrill ride there. It is actually a really good spinning coaster. Would I go back for it currently? No, but next year they're opening a dart ride, which I'm interested in doing, and I'm going to go and do it, and I'm going to probably go there as a family and experience that part. They are building a coaster for 2026. People are saying it's going to have inversions. They might break the cycle of family means kids ride. They might go with a family can include 2 adults and a 4-year-old and an 18-year-old, because sometimes there is a massive age gap between siblings. And I think that does get forgotten about. And I'm hoping that Poulton's Park do something that no one is expecting for next year, and they throw a big coaster in, or a big coaster for them, let's say. I'm not expecting them to put in Hyperia, for example. But if they put in like just something remotely thrilling, it will just shake everything up, I think. And parks will look at it and go, well, if they can do it, we can do it. And it might encourage Drayton Manor to go, actually, we're going to go back down that road. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking.
Yeah. But it could, thinking about the location of Poulton's, it could draw customer away from elsewhere. Do you know, if you're Drayton,
yeah,
they're probably, I'd say Drayton and Poulton's are kind of equidistant from London, aren't they?
I have no idea.
To a point. They're probably, I think, probably 2 hours each from London?
Yeah,
give or take.
Something like that.
If they start taking customer away from,
yeah,
you go, oh right, well, the older kids are getting bored of there. They've just built a massive new ride. Shall we start going there instead? Especially because I think Poulton's have quite a good season pass price as well.
I honestly don't know, but one thing I can draw a comparison to is, I know you'll probably laugh at me for saying it, a park in Denmark called Farup Sommerland. You may have heard of it. We went there in 2022. We didn't vlog it. It was me, Mark, and Craig Toy went. And the reason we went is because they put in a modern Vekoma looping roller coaster. Now, remember, like people were saying, this is their first big sort of coaster. And when you got there, it did feel a bit like Poulton's Park, but it felt like Poulton's Park 10 years down the line, whereas they'd got all the kids' stuff, they'd got family stuff, and they'd just, with every coaster investment, they'd just pushed their luck a little bit more with something a bit more thrilling. And then they went for it with Phoenix, which is a full-on thrill coaster. Inversions, it's tall, it's forceful. Over the head restraints, it is a very forceful coaster for what it is. And you're looking at it and going, this could work at somewhere like Drayton Manor or Blackpool or Poulton's Park or one of the other UK family parks, which has gone down the family road because it is literally bigger than everything else they've got in that park. And you go, well, how's it done for you? And then you speak to people at the park and they say, amazing, we've had one of our best years in history. And it's like, so there is a market for it.
So I've got a bit of a competition for Scott and Mike today. So come and take a seat, Scott, and we'll get started. Okay, so round one. Basically, you need. Go on then. What is it, Mike? Take a guess. So basically, it's just like a blurry image at the moment, but it'll slowly reveal itself. So
Can I just make an observation?
Yeah.
I can't see it past the microphone.
Yeah, neither can I.
You're gonna have to try and do your best.
Great.
What is it, a coaster or?
It is a coaster, but you need to buzz in.
Are we playing it then or what? It's Planet Coaster 2.
It is Planet Coaster 2, which comes out next week.
Yes.
Well done.
He says it comes out next week, but by the time this video's on, it'll already be
It'll
out.
already been out in a few days. So yeah, really looking forward to it. I think from the sound you are as well. So
Yes, I have it pre-ordered on the PlayStation.
And also on the image, it's actually a bit of 13. They've actually gone and put the multi-dimension coaster in, which I'm looking forward to doing.
If we can play cross-platform on PlayStation and PC, then me and you are not going to have much daylight.
No, you can.
Oh, we're in big trouble.
I know.
Sorry, everyone. It was nice knowing you all. We'll see you in about
Next episode is just these two playing on that.
Yeah, Mike's taking over from here on in.
Cool. Right, next one.
Sorry.
That's what he says.
Survey says Stephen is faffing.
Look, it's the best way I can do it, unfortunately.
He's making them as we go along here.
Yeah, I'm not.
What on earth
spent a
is
lot of time
that?
doing this, right? You've got no
That's the
idea, have you?
point.
Right, there we go.
It's Epic Universe.
Yeah, right, yeah, it is Epic Universe. So, as you can see, 22nd of May.
Yep.
You looking forward to it?
I am. Unfortunately, will not be going on opening day, but will be going September next year. Well, actually, August next year.
I think that's the wise choice, essentially.
I'm very excited for the whole park. I know you can only buy a ticket for one day in the 14-day thingies, but I am going to buy another ticket at least. I am regretting not getting an annual pass.
Yeah.
Because by the time I'll have been next year, I'll have had 3 visits in 12 months, which is a massive regret not getting a pass.
I think I probably should have done the same.
Yeah,
but,
we messed up there.
Yeah. Okay, right. I need to turn this way. So we're on the sound round now.
Oh, sound round.
The sound round. So buzz in when you know.
Big one.
Correct. I think Scott just beat you to that one. So yeah, it was the big one. Blackpool Pleasure Beach. That iconic Lift Hill sound. So I feel like I want to start with something quite easy for you to guess to start with.
I'll be honest, I thought you were going to go with Magnum. So
I was actually going to say Magnum
yeah,
first.
yeah.
And then,
I heard the sort of the arrow sound of a lift hill.
I was going to say Magnum, but
The anti-rollbacks give it away.
Yeah,
as
just
soon as,
after, yeah.
Yeah, if you just listen to it, you can kind of tell the difference. Cool. Right, so you ready for the next one?
No.
No? Okay. You are going to struggle on this one.
Great.
Go on then.
Velocicoaster.
No.
Oh,
Any ideas, Mike?
Taron.
No. Okay.
Two tatties. Yes.
I was going to say Escape from Gotham City.
Cool. So that's it for the competition on this one. Well done, Scott. You've done very well there.
What do I win?
What do you? Well, you win the luxury
Half a can of Coke.
of my. I don't know. We'll go somewhere and I'll buy you a coffee or an iron brew.
Yes, Iron Brew. Pleasure Beach cheers. So it's time for us to have a chat on the break run. Now, the reason this section is called On the Break Run is because I find myself at the end of the roller coaster that is being stacked, just chatting absolute nonsense. And it's usually nothing to do with the ride that we're sat on.
Talk about Oblivion's break run if you want.
Oh, yeah, well, it doesn't specifically have to be about a break run. It's just this. That's what this section's called.
So I think I dread to think how many hours of my life I've spent sat on Oblivion's break run. Let's talk about operations for a little bit, eh? So let's go into Oblivion particularly, because I know a lot of people have asked me in the past, like, why do you always wait for so long on Oblivion's break run? And it purely depends on how that ride's been set up for that day. So you have like a different number of shuttles, well, or trains, but on Oblivion they're called shuttles, and you can run it in dual station or single station. And what they tend to do is on single station they'll put 4 shuttles on, which basically means it's just one going out at a time. So if you get one slight hold up, which is incredibly frequent these days with like bags and items that people bring onto the rides, it doesn't send out as quickly, because ideally what you should be doing when it's on 4 shuttles is basically, before it's gone over the top, the next lot of people should be sat in the seats, buckled in and ready to go, and it should be stopping before the lift to go. However, in recent years, it doesn't really work like that, but they still put 4 on. And I think a part of that reason as well is if there is any kind of technical issue with one of the shuttles, if they take one off, it's not going to adversely affect the operation that much because you still got 3 more. But if you will notice, if it's got 5 shuttles on, you'll actually go straight round and in. I don't know if you've ever been on Oblivion and just gone straight into the station.
No, I don't think so.
It does happen. So if you're on 5 shuttles, that happens a lot more frequently. But you'll arrive at, when you left from Station 1, you'll come back into Station 2. And it runs a lot quicker that way.
I know we're going to get to the Q&A session soon, but I have a question for you. What was your favourite ride to work on then?
Oh, my favourite coaster, I think my heart's always been in 13.
Yeah.
It's always been in 13. Like, that's the one I started on, and that's the one that I spent a lot of time on over winter on the maintenance side. So I've got a soft spot for that one. And it's great to see it back in its high throughput layout again, as it has been a little bit restricted as the last few, since 2016 it's been kind of running a lot slower than it should be, but now they've kind of redesigned the queue a little bit. I know some people are for it, some people against it. I'm 100% for it, because when we were there, how long did we wait in the Tesla coil?
It wasn't long, was it? As soon as we were past the baggage hold, we were just on. Yeah. And I know I've mentioned it a lot, but when me and Charlie went on it for his first and only go, I thought we'd been there for ages, and I was trying to explain to him about, don't be scared if it goes off. We didn't even see it. No, we were just straight round and in. So that was. This is the thing. When you're trying to take a scared 6-year-old on a coaster, you need fast operations, because they don't half change their mind a couple of times. I took him on Avalanche the other day, and it cost me a lot of money. I had a bet with him, and I didn't think he'd go for it. I thought, he's not going to call my bluff on this. So I made a bet with my son. If you go on Avalanche at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, you can have anything Lego up to the value of £100. He went, all right, Dad, let's go. I was like, oh, no. And, he's got his Lego, and he's absolutely delighted. And Becca's delighted as well, because she doesn't have to buy it in for Christmas now, because, I've done it already. But, he's delighted. So, throughputs are important.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Here's a coaster with good throughputs, and I've got to mention it, Magnum XL 200. That is my subject, because that coaster does not get enough love. And for all the Cedar Point fans out there who are like, get rid of it, or it's too rough, come and ride the big one. And then go back and ride Magnum, and you will see what you've got. You will see how you have got the elite hypercoaster. I have been on a lot of hypercoasters. I've been on a lot of B&M hypercoasters, and not one of them is as good as Magnum. Not even close. Like, they're good. They've got nice floaty airtime. They're good. But that's it. Magnum's just wild. We've all been on Magnum. It's just raucous, isn't it? But not only that, free trains.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, it's walk-on. It's still on free trains. And then you might occasionally come to it and the pens will be full and you'll be like, it's going to take ages. No, on free trains it isn't.
It's always ready to go, isn't it, essentially? Yeah. I think a part of that helps with that, the operation side, is they can't stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they can stop it, but if they stop it, it causes a problem. So they keep, not a big problem, but the ride, once it stops, it needs a reset procedure to get it back going again. And I think that gets the team constantly in a mode of urgency almost to keep them trains.
I know a guy that's brought it to a free train standstill. Hi, Matt. You all right, mate? Yeah, I think he's the only person that's brought it to a free train standstill. But it's a fabulous coaster, and we're actually, when we were doing an audio test for this video, I was saying to Stephen, if that was to ever be announced it was closing, I'd probably take out a loan if I needed to, and I'd go and ride it on its last weekend. I couldn't let it go without going, and I think another one that we could probably bring to the table on that subject is Kingda Ka, and obviously there's all these rumours that it's going to go. Can you see it? Can you see it happening?
I hope not.
I think it's going to happen.
I'd say that every hydraulic coaster out there is just one major malfunction away from the active chopping block, because they're very expensive to operate and run, and that's only increased over time as the price of oil's gone up, the price of electricity has gone up.
Yeah.
That you've also got to bear in mind the ropes get changed every 6 months on like Rita, for instance, or 50,000 launches, whichever one comes first, and that's an expensive process as well. Like putting the ropes in, they're pretty good to get it done overnight these days, which is fantastic. But I think if something majorly went wrong with that planetary gearbox or with the hydraulic side, I think they would just say, let's put something new in.
The issue you've got as well is, I think if you go to, say, Intamin, who've manufactured these coasters, and say, we need XYZ part, can you get it us? They'll probably go, well, we'll just build you a new coaster for this much money. And you're probably going to look at it and go, well, is it worth us fixing this ride that's 20-year-old, or do we get an LSM launch coaster which is more reliable, can go forwards, backwards, as many times as we want it to, it can have higher capacity, it can do different stuff, and it's not just going up and down and back? They're probably going to go with it at the end of the day. I don't know what Six Flags Great Adventure are going to do with Kingda Ka, but I think there's no smoke without fire, is there?
Yeah, I don't think it's immediately at risk, but I think that, I do think that it potentially down the line, it depends on it. Like there's so many variables that could happen. I don't think it's immediately at risk, but I do think that down the line it is going to go. I'm hoping that you guys are going to get it when you're out there, but I do think it's probably going to see at least another year before they chop it.
I haven't got a positivity and negativity hat with me today, but if I was wearing one of them, it'd probably be a negativity one, and I genuinely am worried it's going to go before our trip, because there is now a lot of markings on the floor near it. So there's talk Green Lantern's going, which they can take right now for me. That pile of rubbish could go in the bin anytime they want to put it in the bin. Kingda Ka, though, I feel like because of what it is, they need to give people a lot of notice. But parks aren't really for that. As we saw with Wild Mouse, it was kind of like, bye-bye, it's gone. Get over it. And people do get over it.
I think that was a unique situation, though, that it was just never going to be able to reopen.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen it at other parks where they just announce a ride's gone. I mean, we've seen a lot of it in the UK, especially Pleasure Beach, but I do think it's going to go. I really do. I just hope that we get on it next summer. Not so much from my point of view, I've done it. I'm thinking more of all the people on our America trip. That's what I'm worried about.
Like me.
Oh, you've not been on it, have you? You've looked at it. You've been on Zumanjaro, to be fair. Yeah.
Oh, the double screamer.
Yeah, it's a double screamer. That thing, I was all right until it went past the spiral on Kingda Ka, and I went, we're really high here.
But it's more than when you go past the spiral, you feel like you're at the top, and then you go past the spiral, and you go...
That's what I mean. We got to the spiral, and I'm like, I'm all good. And then it kept going up, and I was like, holy moly, what's going on here?
You've got ants down there.
Yeah.
Well, car's still there.
Yeah, literally picking out a big red car in the car park.
I think that's another reason why I think it isn't immediately on the chopping block, because if you do get rid of like car completely, you are essentially removing 4 rides.
Yeah, because the thing is, if they remove that Zumanjaro, Green Lantern, like you say, that's 3 attractions going literally in one go.
I don't think car's on the chopping block yet. I think Lantern is probably more at risk.
The thing is, I trust El Toro Ryan, and he's very sure it's going. So,
but again, it's one of those. Like, I think they will keep it going as long as there's no problems. But it's like, you know what the hydraulic coasters are like.
Yeah.
That's only an extension of time before it becomes costly.
And before we move on to the Q&A session, I have one more question. Yeah. Do you think Top Thrill 2 will ever operate again?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do wonder if Siren's Curse is literally
I don't think it'll open again.
For it.
No, I think it will, because at the end of the day, the issue, as far as I'm aware, is a train-related issue. Like, I could be wrong. Now, if it is a train-related issue, I think that another manufacturer could potentially step in and fix that. Who is more experienced in such.
Or there could be more issues that are being rumoured, like track and trains, and then it becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
But I hope it reopens. I'd be quite happy if it doesn't open in 2025, because I don't really want to pay to go to Cedar Point next year as well. But with having a pass which covers that park, it's always going to be tempting. So if that opens, the thought of that, Siren's Curse and Magnum, yeah.
It's a matter of how much more money they're prepared to throw at it as well.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. It's time for us to move on to the Q&A session, and we are going to separate the questions out between the three of us. The first one is from Carl, which is basically along the lines of what prompted the rebrand of Pleasure Beach Experience to Your Experience Guide. Now, obviously, this one is a me question, definitely. It was just a matter of that we outgrew Pleasure Beach Experience. There was actually a plan to rebrand in 2019, at the end of 2019, but there was just a gut feeling that it was too early. And obviously, I'm not saying I predicted COVID, because I certainly didn't, but there was just a gut feeling. You know when you get a gut feeling that something's just not quite right? And we got to the end of 2019, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, what are we going to rebrand to? Is it the right time? And I just decided, no, let's leave it another year. And then as it happened, obviously, we had the COVID pandemic. Then in 2021, we ended up doing a lot of stuff with Pleasure Beach that we'd never done before in a Club Pleasure Beach Experience capacity, filming mounted POVs, doing behind-the-scenes stuff, filming the documentary. So it was kind of like, no, it was definitely the right time to stay as Pleasure Beach Experience. But then a few things happened over that closed season, which I don't really want to go into. Basically, I felt due to, probably the best way to put it is due to a working relationship, I felt it was the best time for us to think about rebranding. We were going all over the world doing different theme parks. We were doing a lot more than Blackpool. We were going to Europe a lot. We were going to America a lot. And it just felt that we need to move on, because there was a lot of comments on videos from places like Cedar Point, Six Flags, Tully's Shocktoberfest, where it's like, why are Blackpool Pleasure Beach going to this place? Why are Blackpool Pleasure Beach going to that place? And it was like, we're not Blackpool Pleasure Beach. We're just vloggers with the name Pleasure Beach Experience. And I think the channel was growing, but the brand ID was all wrong for what we were doing. So it was time to do it, really. And it took me 9 months, really, to make the decision. I was thinking about it all of 2020. I'd been thinking about it for a long time before, but it was the right decision. It was definitely the right decision. And there was another question about the rebrand saying, has it been a success? Massively. On YouTube, we're getting 1 or 2 million more views a year. We're getting more people at the events. Parks are more willing to work with us now. We've got a more separate, independent ID. And it's just a lot easier to approach parks and say, we are your experience guide, rather than we are Pleasure Beach Experience, because there's never that connection to a park now. Like, for example, when we had an event in America in 2022, when we got there, and I won't say what park it was, but when we got there, they went, oh, you're the Blackpool Pleasure Beach guys. We're like, not quite. And they're like, oh, do you not work at Pleasure Beach? And we're like, no. And it was that moment then I remember walking off and saying to Mark, we have to rebrand next year. So yeah, next question. Right, I'm going to pass this one to you, Butty. Lewis asks, if you could replace any ride at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, what would it be? Now, I know you won't have thought about it, so I'll come back to you. Stephen, a question from Craig. What do you see in the future for Pleasure Beach? I'm assuming Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
Well, I think they have had a difficult few years at Pleasure Beach, but I am hoping with some of the recent developments that are taking place, obviously the Grand Prix is closed, a lot more space kind of opening up to put something big in. I think they do need to try and move on to some new equipment as soon as they can, and try and, market themselves as the best amusement park. As we all know, it is the best amusement park, and it can be the best amusement park. If they do that, I think people will go, and hopefully some new equipment will get people going.
You thought about your answer yet?
I'd get rid of either Avalanche or Infusion.
Sam asks, with certain rides being so rough, is that a big factor in why people don't return as often as they would to a different theme park? I clarified that this was about the Pleasure Beach, so basically he's asking, is the roughness of the rides at Pleasure Beach, or alleged roughness, let's say, the reason why people don't go back? I would say no. I don't think that's a factor.
I think there is a degree of it. I think it's a lot less prominent now with Icon. Icon's very smooth. It's a good coaster. But I used to be able to re-ride the Nash. I can't anymore. And I don't know if that's just because I'm a bigger guy now, or if it is just a little bit or older. It could be either. I just think that the re-rideability of the rides, if you can't keep going on it, maybe that will deter a little bit. But for me, I'll do anything at these parks at least once on a trip. So I don't think it puts me off personally, but I could see why some people who just want to lap rides may not want to potentially go back to that particular park.
What do you think?
There's perhaps an unfair perception about that because the rides at Pleasure Beach are old, they're unsafe with the public at times.
Yeah, that definitely comes through on Facebook, but we know that's not true.
We know it's not, but that comes through in there, and they're not necessarily cosmetically looking the best. Some of them, there's Avalanche really needs a paint job, for example. Yeah. Revolution really needs a paint job. So that doesn't help. The cosmetic appearance of a ride doesn't help an already held perception.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mark, not Mark Yates, but Mark asks, I would like to know if you think that Blackpool Pleasure Beach should be either sold to Merlin or Amanda should sell to another family member. My honest answer is I don't think Merlin would buy Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and I think that it will stay in the family. That's how I see it. They might get some assistance from an outside investor, perhaps a different coaster manufacturer that they get on with, but I don't think they'll ever sell to Merlin, and I also don't think Merlin would buy it.
Yeah, I can't see Merlin taking on Pleasure Beach, and to be fair, I don't know if it's something that would be good for the UK amusement industry as a whole. I think variety and different operators will it causes innovation almost within the parks, and if you take that away, I think that Pleasure Beach is still one of the biggest competitors to Merlin.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to see that change.
No. It's like, for example, Six Flags and Cedar Fair merging. It's kind of like they now all own all these parks.
It's a worry in my eyes.
I must admit, I'm surprised that didn't come up as a monopolies issue.
Yeah, same.
I really am. When I heard that, I thought surely that would make them too big a company in the market. But
yeah, maybe it's different over there. But
the same thing occurs to me with if Merlin were to buy Pleasure Beach.
Yeah, I just don't think they would. It's just not their type of park. I mean, it's an amusement park. It's nothing like any of their other parks. So I think people just assume because they're in the UK, they've got all these parks, they're in Blackpool already, that they'll suddenly buy Blackpool Pleasure Beach. They won't. And I think that we need to keep an eye on what Merlin are doing in the UK because there's some more news coming out there other than the Bear Grylls thing. So keep an eye on it, I would say. Moving on, Callum asks, what hobbies do you have outside of YouTube? Well, I'll quite happily take this one because obviously for you guys it is a hobby, but for me, YouTube is my job. So outside of YouTube, well, I never stop. If it's not YouTube, it's going to watch football, Man United. I love films. I love watching Batman, Superman, James Bond. Anything that's got a bit of action in it, I love watching it. Love watching things like Brassic as well, which is a bit stupid. Life on Mars, which I'm trying to encourage Stephen to watch. Mike still never watched it, even though it was filmed near his house. So, yeah, I think for me, I just like to keep busy. I mean, I was at a point in life where I nearly didn't make it to 30. I looked at my life and went, I have not done a lot of things I want to do. So when I had the surgery that was needed to carry on going, let's say, I went, you know what, if I make it out on the other side, I am doing everything I want to do, and I'm not just going to sit on my arse and do nothing, basically. It was a case of life is for living, and I'll worry about being knackered when I'm old. And I'm not old yet, regardless of what you want to say. I'm the youngest here for the matter. Only just, but it's still a fact. I don't know if you want to answer that, your hobbies?
Yeah, I've got my, outside of sort of theme parks, roller coasters, would be watching sports.
Yeah.
So winter it's football, either Altrincham or United. Summer it's rugby league and cricket.
Yeah, so for me, I'm actually I work in programming buildings, and it's quite electronic based. So one of my hobbies I do have is control systems and computers and integrating the two together. So that's what I tend to play around with. I know it's a little bit geeky, but that's what I'm into in my spare time.
And he won't tell you about it, but I'm going to tell you about it. Stephen has a YouTube channel as well where he builds Planet Coaster stuff. And is it your train thing that you do as well?
Transport Fever. I do Transport Fever and Planet Coaster. They alternate on a weekly basis.
Yeah, so Tycoon Terminal, check it out. He's quite good.
I'm getting there. I'm new.
You're doing a good job with your Planet Coaster stuff. Really good.
I just build what I want to see.
SLCs. Next question is from Joey. Do you think Blackpool Pleasure Beach will revert back to non-rider passes for day guests? If so, does this justify having to scan e-tickets at each ride? I think this is just a quick one on the basis of they're obviously bringing in this season pass for non-riders, and in my opinion, that is going to be some sort of test to see if people still want the non-rider passes. I don't know if they will or they won't, but I think that I don't know for sure if they're doing it as a test or if this is just something they want to do for pass holders, but I definitely feel like it might be them seeing, is this what people still want, or is it just enthusiasts moaning about it all the time?
My issue with that is I think it would probably flag as it's enthusiasts moaning all the time, because I think people go on impulse to Pleasure Beach.
Yeah.
So I do think there is a place for the day pass.
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I think it's good they've done it. So anyone who's kind of locally, like, you know, if you, like, for instance, your mum as an example, like, she would definitely get that rather than the ride pass, because she doesn't really do many rides.
Yeah. I think, like, for my dad, who is literally cannot go on any rides because he's disabled, it's ideal for him.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes sense us getting him that pass rather than getting him the full one, which then he can't go on anything. Exactly. So, yeah, there's definitely, in my opinion, there is definitely a market for it.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly justifies the scanning thing, which has been questioned a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And Joey had another question, which was for me. In the last couple of years, you've mentioned a few times how you think the big one is getting rougher. Does that affect your enjoyment of the ride? Is it still one of your all-time favourites? For me, the big one will always be one of my all-time favourites at the Pleasure Beach. I just unfortunately recognise that it is not ageing well, and I think that in certain areas it is very uncomfortable to be on, namely the bits they haven't retracked. I wouldn't actually touch the first drop. I'd leave that alone, but the rest of it I'd retrack it that they haven't already done. Do I think they'll do that? No, I don't. I don't see that happening now. I think we're at a point now where they've sunk so much money into it that they will probably say, well, that's it. If we're going to do any more, we're going to have to look at replacing it. That's the way I think they'll go down. My issue with that is if you replace the big one, it has to be done quickly. Because as much as people love Icon, I think big one's still the draw to Pleasure Beach, and always will be. So unless they go bigger and faster, if they've got something that's already bigger and faster and then decide to replace it, then I think they can get away with it. But I think if they do a Nemesis basically, or say they do an Alton Towers, take Nemesis out for a year and put it back in, I don't know if Pleasure Beach have got that luxury of a big one.
No, I don't think they have. It's got anything that goes in its place is realistically going to have to break something, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think as a general thing, I think we're at the limit of speed. I don't physically think you can build a roller coaster any faster, because I don't think.
Well, you can, but you might not be able to take it.
Well, this is it. I don't. You could build it faster, but I don't think the average person can withstand anything more than 150.
Does Pleasure Beach need a height and speed world record, or does it just need a European one or a regional one?
How many of these, bigger coasters have you been on now? And they're a little bit underwhelming. I've been on quite a few now, of like particularly hypercoasters are probably the biggest one for me. That I'm like, you know what, that's tall and fast, but did that actually do anything really? Yeah. I thought it was good. And sometimes I think some of the smaller coasters like Taron, Gotham City, fantastic coasters. It doesn't have to be huge to be a really fun coaster, a great coaster. So I think we are starting to move back in that direction where it's about, let's make just a really fun roller coaster.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. But a punch like a big headline sells.
Oh yeah,
and I think it needs to be something that's marketable.
Yeah, so you need like a USP for it, don't you?
Definitely.
Essentially. So, but I think that the coaster wars have kind of died down a little bit. Of like the taller, faster has kind of eased back a bit, and I think Formula Rosa is currently not operational, and obviously it's a shame because that was the world's fastest roller coaster, but I reckon if I rode it, yeah, it's fast. I don't think it's for me. I don't think it's a Steve coaster, but I can see why people would like it though. Like, I think the same kind of people who really like Millennium Force would probably quite enjoy Formula Rosa.
Kate asks, what was your favourite Halloween event in the UK and why? Tully's Shocktoberfest. All day long, every day of the week, every day of the year. I know not everybody agrees, but for me, it's the full package. You've got scare mazes, you've got street theatre outside, you've got games, you've got rides, there's shows. The people there that work there are incredible. They put their heart and soul into it. For me, there is nobody does it like Tully's, and this is going to be controversial if people are still watching by this point, because I know it's a long video. For me, it's up there with Halloween Horror Nights. It is a full event. It is not just a turn up, do the scare mazes, and go home. You've got the full event, and as I keep saying to Stephen, you could go there. You don't have to do the scare mazes because you've got so much else that's going on. You do if you want to do them, but if you want to go there and just experience the night, I've been there with somebody that did no scare mazes and just did the street fair stuff, interacted with the characters, went on some of the rides, watched the shows. You can experience Tully's by just interacting with the street fair, doing the rides, having the food. For me, there is nowhere that does it better in Europe so far. Best event by a long way. I don't know if you disagree.
Tully's would be the benchmark.
Yeah.
But I've also got to give a bit of a shout out to Farmageddon.
Yeah, fair enough. That's all for the first episode of the Dispatch podcast here on Your Experience Guide. If you have enjoyed this first episode, please let us know in the comments section below. Please give it a like, it's a little thumbs up below, and please subscribe. Many thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next video.